You have to think, who am I? I mean, is this my navel? Is this me? Is this body me or not? So you can't avoid these questions. Not only you can't avoid these questions, but you can't ask the world, okay, tell me, is life condensable? You know, you ask water, and water just stares you in the face and laughs and says, drink me. Like, but I'm not going to give you an answer. So you can't go meta. You can't go under. You can't tell the world, you're making me crazy. And finally, you can't escape. You can go to Mars, but you know what? If you're in Mars, you're still going to be human in language, making circles of meanings with other people in your community. And that's what makes life impossible and fun. What would it be if we lived holding this paradox? We cannot answer this question in our linear mind. So far I've been talking. It's like, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I try. I'm trying. I'm trying very hard to be sort of linear, to have my sentences make sense. So if you thought you were having trouble up to this point, good luck, because now the real talk starts. So what I need to do is I need to ask you to also change your frame of mind so we can all be a little more human with each other. And I don't have to pretend I'm sort of the corporate type giving you a talk here in Pegasus. In order to do that, I will use two devices. The first is a piece of music. I'm going to tell you a story as a way to continue my talk. And it's a story that will resonate with people on many different levels. But like a guitar, we need a resonance box. And the way to create that resonance box would be for you to listen to this piece of music. This is a story of King Arthur. And I've chosen a piece of music from Greensleeves. So it's Greensleeves. And I'll ask you just to pay attention to music and let the music suggest things to you. And as you listen to the music, I'll ask you to focus, Fanny, your attention on your tongue. Tongue. Most of the time, when we leave our hearts behind, our tongue is stuck up to our upper palate. So if your tongue is up to your upper palate, it's like the push button to exit the heart. It's like the eject button. I mean, you push your tongue up to your upper palate and your heart goes out. So a good practice is to say, it's 5 to 11. Do you know where your tongue is? And if you don't, find out, because it can get in problematic places. So let's just it'll take a couple minutes. And I would invite you to breathe. Breathe fully. Like, we're here together. As Fritjof was saying, we exchange matter and energy. And in MindWalk, we're sort of breathing each other's oxygen. We're all breathing together here. So let's just breathe together for a couple of minutes and listen to this piece of music. And I'll also get ready to be able to tell you a story. Okay? Can we play that? Okay, so now telling stories. This story is the real name of this talk. I proposed to Dan that we would call this talk, "What is it that a woman wants most?" And he said, "Fred, you don't need those things to get people's attention. They'll come anyway." I said, but there's a bonus. You see, if they come to my talk, they'll really learn what is it that a woman wants most. Because that's the name of the story. And I want to make a deal with you. I'm going to tell you this story. And this story will have an answer to that question. What is it that a woman wants most? If you accept my answer, I'm going to ask you for a prize. It will be a favor you have to do to me. If you don't accept the answer, then you don't have to pay the price. So it's money back guarantee, or favor back guarantee. Okay? You don't have to do it unless you agree with the answer of the story. Okay, you accept the deal? Okay. If you don't accept the deal, just, you can't stay. But if you stay, that means you accept the deal. So, this is a story about King Arthur. King Arthur was hunting in Inglewood with his knights, and he saw this beautiful boar just running out there. So he ran chasing after the boar, and after about a mile or so, he hunted the boar down and got it. He got off his horse, and he was getting ready to address the kill, when suddenly he realized he was not alone. There was somebody else there. So Arthur looked around, and he saw this huge knight, all dressed in black, on top of a black horse, with a big, big lance, a spear pointing straight to his heart. And that made it look even bigger. Now, he was looking at, and the knight said, "Arthur Pendragon, prepare yourself to die. You have done me much wrong, and it's time to pay you back." Arthur had no clue about who this guy was. He's like, "Who are you?" "That doesn't matter. I'll have your head." And Arthur, sweating big pearls of sweat, had to think very fast and said, "Oh, but knight, where will be the honor for you? I have no weapons. I have no armor. It wouldn't be an honorable thing for a knight to take my life in this situation." Well, the other guy said, "I guess you're right. That's true. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a riddle. And in a year from now, you have to come back. If you have an answer to my riddle, you will have your life. If you can't answer my riddle, then I'll have your life." Again, Arthur had no choice. He had to accept. So he asked, "Well, what is this riddle?" And the Dark Knight said, "In a year, you have to tell me what is it that a woman wants most." What is it that a woman wants most? Arthur was as good as dead. Okay. So he rode back, very depressed, not knowing what to do, very depressed. And Sir Gawain, who was there, asked him what was wrong with him. Sir Gawain was King Arthur's nephew, a knight of the Round Table, and sort of the chivalric ideal. And Arthur told him the story. And Sir Gawain, who was very bright, said, "Oh, I know what we need to do. We need to do some research. We'll do a survey, we'll put together the answers, then we'll do Pareto charts, and we'll find out." And we will find out which are the best answers, and then that's what you give. You see, don't be depressed. We'll come up with it. That's linear, no problem. We'll just do research. He'll take care of it. So So they did. They went out in their horses riding in different directions, and when they met man or woman, they asked them, well, what do you think that a woman wants most? And you know, some women said, I want a loving husband. Some other women said, I want a pretty house. Some other women said, I want a great set of clothes. And some other women said, chocolate. So, you know, they wrote all this stuff down. They came back, and you know, they put together everything in a computer. They ran the progressions and all that stuff. And Arthur was looking at the printout, saying, you know, this doesn't feel right. It's like I'm not very comfortable going back in a couple of months. There were only 2 months left, and talking to the Black Knight with these answers. So he went out to the forest to think about it. And he was just walking in the forest, going and thinking, and Inglewood and all that stuff, and that. And suddenly, he heard, before he heard anything, he was trapped by the most awful smell that you can imagine. It was like 1,000 skunks condensed in a single drop that they had put under his nose, like this. You know. And he was like, ugh, what's this? And he started looking like, you know, maybe 1,000 animals had died someplace and they were rotting. But he couldn't see anything. And then he heard this, you know, like glass screeching, or if you've ever put your nail against a blackboard and he heard such a noise that's like that, saying, Arthur! What? Arthur! You don't have the answer to that question, and you're going to die. Where's this voice? Where is this voice coming from? And then he saw out there a pile of wood. It was like wooden color of wood. And then there was this like a waterfall of flesh. It's like a pinkish, yellowish thing, like a blob, you know, flowing down to the sides of this pile of wood. And he just walked a little closer in spite of the smell, and he got closer, and he realized that that pile of flesh was actually something resembling a human form. And he got closer, and he saw the ugliest, most disgusting hag you can ever imagine. I mean, well, I won't tell you about her, because it's just too disgusting. Well, I'll tell you about her. She had fangs like this coming out, and she was drooling all the time. Her flesh was full of scabs, and the pus was flowing through her, you know, through her skin. She had these yellowish, greenish patches of hair, because she was bald, but she had like patches. One of her eyes was bulging up, and the other was full of cataracts, so it was all like white. And and her smell. So Arthur, just repelled by this sight, but also a little intrigued because this woman knew about him, approached her. And as he approached, the woman just pushed herself out of this pile of wood, and when she touched the floor, there was this awful sound of squish. And every time she walked, it was this squish, squish. There's something inside her shoes that was just like, you know, every time she walked, it was squish, squish. So she approached Arthur and said, Arthur, your answers are not going to save your life. But I know what you can tell the Black Knight. And then your life will be saved. I said, well, speak, woman. Tell me, what is it that a woman wants most? Ah, not so fast. I will give you that answer, but you have to promise you'll do a favor for me. Well, what do you want? I'll give you up to half my kingdom. No. I don't want riches. I want something else. Well, tell me. No, I won't tell you now. If my answer saves your life, then you will pay me with a favor. Okay, if your answer saves my life, I will do whatever you ask me. Good. So listen, Arthur, and listen well, because this is what's going to save your life. What a woman wants most is to be the master of her life, to live according to her heart's desire, and to be loved and respected as such. Something clunked in Arthur. What a woman wants most is to be the master of her own life, to live according to her heart's desire, and to be loved and respected as such. That sounded pretty good. So Arthur now, he was happy on the one hand and nervous on the other hand. You know, life is not condensable. You always get the full thing. So he went back, and his mood was a little lighter, and he went back to the, after a year, he went back to the place where the dark black knight was waiting for him. And this guy was there with his armor, a sword, ready to cut Arthur's head. Said, Arthur, I'm going to have your head. So what is it that a woman wants most? And Arthur said, okay, here are the books. And he had all the answers in his books except for Lady Ragnelle's. So the Black Knight started looking, a house, nah, a husband, nah, this, no, nothing. He went through the two books, just throw them out. Arthur, you are good as dead. And Arthur said, well, I have one more answer. Okay, speak fast. What a woman wants most is to be the master of her own life, to live according to her heart's desire, and to be loved and respected as such. Ah, damn that Lady Ragnelle. She gave you the answer. But your fate now will be worse than if you were dead. And he left. Now, Arthur was not very quieted by the Black Knight's words. So with some trepidation, he came back to where Lady Ragnelle was and said, okay, your answer has saved my life. What do you want? I'll give you up to half my kingdom. No, Arthur, I don't want your kingdom. I only want one thing. I want you to marry me with Sir Gawain. Woman, I can't do that. I can't tell him what to do. Arthur, you promised. And he had promised. So he said, okay, I'll ask. And he went back and asked Sir Gawain, explaining him the story, what had happened. And Gawain said, my lord, I was ready to die for you. I'll marry this woman 1,000 times, no matter how ugly she is, so you can keep your word. And Arthur was saying, you haven't seen her. and Gawain said, it doesn't matter. So Arthur said, so be it. Your sacrifice has saved my life, but only death will save you from your sacrifice. So they went to look for Lady Ragnelle, not Gawain, but the servants and all that. And they wanted to put her inside the carriage so nobody would see her and just shove her into some place and do a quick marriage and get done with it. But she wouldn't go for that. She wanted to be a real lady. Like, she wanted to come in with an open carriage through the main doors of Camelot with all the people there waiting for her. The embarrassment was amazing. I mean, they didn't know what to do with her. They bathed her 1,000 times and she could not get rid of her smell. They changed her clothes. She would rip out of her clothes as soon as they put new clothes on. They tried to comb her, but her hair would come out when they tried to comb her. They couldn't do anything. So at the end, they kind of gave up and they brought her in and they celebrated this big wedding feast in the main room of the castle. And again, she was grabbing like half boar and just chomping at it and spitting everybody around her, and, you know, it looks like, I mean, she wouldn't be good guest for the royal family, I guess. So it was. I mean, they carried on with the night, and they finished the wedding and all that stuff. And then at midnight, it was time for them to go to their room. The newlywed had to go to their room. They went to their room. Lady Ragnelle climbed onto bed, and Gawain went to the chimney, to the fireplace, and he was like hitting his thimble. Trying to sort of numb himself so he wouldn't be fully conscious. And, well, he heard this voice from the bed saying, "Well, my husband, are you going to come? Won't you at least give me a kiss?" And Gawain said, "Yes, my lady, I will give you a kiss, and I will also fulfill my duties as your husband." So he walked up to the bed and opened the curtains. And when he opened the curtains, he saw lying there the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. This was glorious beauty incarnate. And he was speechless. He was like, what's going on? And Lady Ragnelle said, "Well, my husband, you see, I was put under a spell by my stepmother. And she said in the spell that until a knight, the most courageous knight of the Round Table, until that knight married me, I would be condemned to live as the old hag in which you saw me." So Gawain was overjoyed. He was like, "Oh, so this is the real you?" Yes. So they had a great night. Let me put it that way. Amongst other things, they talked, and they really fell in love with each other, and it was just glorious. It was the most glorious night in Gawain's life. He was deeply, passionately in love with this woman. She had so much beauty in her body and in her heart. It was beautiful. So at some point, they fell asleep. They were sleeping, and then when the sun started coming in through the curtains, Gawain started waking up. And he smelled this horrible, awful smell. It was like, "Ooh, what's going on?" And he opened his eyes, and to his desperation and sheer terror, he saw that he was holding in his arms that ugly hag that he had seen last afternoon. So he jumped out of bed saying, "What's this? What's going on?" And Lady Ragnelle from the bed said, "Well, you see, my husband, my stepmother put me under the spell that when I got married with a knight of the Round Table, I would live half of my life like this, and half of my life like you saw me last night. However, you have a choice. Would you prefer me to be like this during the day for everybody else, and beautiful during the night for you? Or would you rather me be beautiful during the day for everybody else, and ugly at night for you?" Boy, what a question. What would you say? So, Gawain didn't have, he didn't know what the hell to do. So he was like, what, I mean, I don't know. What can I say with this question? I can't. So at the end he came and said, "Look, my lady, you are my spouse. I have really seen who you are. So I can't really decide that for you. My heart and my riches are yours, and it's for you to decide how you want to live. And when he said that, there was this flash, and Lady Ragnelle turned back into the beauty that she had been last night. And she said, "My Lord, you have released me from the spell, because the other half of the spell was that I would stay like this until a man gave me the gift that a woman wants most." What we had planned as a way to continue our conversation is to have people meet in small groups, to do something we call a check-in. A check-in is a process where everybody has a chance to say whatever they want to say. The stones that you have, we call them talking stones. And the ones we have planned the dots on the stones so that there are enough stones with dots for people to form in groups of 4 or 5. So if you have a stone with a dot, when I ask people to gather in groups, I'll ask you to gather 4 or 5 people around you. You have to move your chairs, so just feel free to get out of this configuration and move. But let me take another minute or so before we start with the activity. The rules of the process are that you take about 1 or 2 minutes first to just go around and say whatever is on your mind at this point. And if everybody does that, there'll still be about 5 minutes for the group to have a conversation as to what do they think about this issue of revealing the heart of the learning organization. And then after 15 minutes, we'll gather back, and I'll tell you, if you agree with me, what is the favor that you have committed to do. Okay?
In the spirit of system thinking and also in gender equity, I would enjoy hearing that story with the his and hers reversed.
Yes. You see, stories talk about who we are. And a way to interpret the story is in terms of energies. And each one of us has male and female energy. So I tell the story to myself thinking, what is it that mankind wants the most? What is it that we all want the most? And how that can come not only from the outside, but also from the inside. Because we are each one of the characters. We are Lady Ragnelle, we are Gawain, we are King Arthur, we are the Black Knight. And all these characters are always playing their stories in our heads and in our hearts. So I would invite us to consider what the power is for us to give that gift to ourselves, and also for us to give that gift to other people, to be able to acknowledge them as masters of their own life. Thank you very much.
There's a character in this story which I thought about, and it's fairly easy to associate with Gawain and with King Arthur and the hag. But I'm thinking, what about the stepmother that cast the spell initially? And it may be difficult for us to associate with that person, but it seems to me our charge is to think of ourselves as perhaps sometimes that stepmother. And what can we do to not cast the spell to begin with?
Yes. A friend of mine, Cliff Berry, talks about vampires. And he talks, now it's fancy because there's this new movie, The Interview with the Vampire. And in some sense, every time we talk to each other, we're having an interview with the vampire. Because we all are the stepmother too. And we didn't get it, so we don't know how to give it. And the question is, where does the buck stop? Okay. Who has the courage to say, the buck stops here? I got bitten, I got the spell, and I'm not going to pass it on. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to do that. And I'm remembering a story that Stephen Levine tells, that it's something, it's very moving to me. Stephen Levine tells the story of one of his friends who wanted to go to study meditation to Southeast Asia. And this was during the Korean War. So when he applied for a visa, he didn't get a visa from the immigration department to go to Southeast Asia. So he went to talk with one of the immigration officials, and when he got his application rejected, without saying anything, he just folded it, and he wrote a verse. He wrote, "Drinking a cup of tea, I stopped the war. Drinking a cup of tea, I stopped the war." And then he gave that back. For one of these miracles, he did get the visa. And what I'm thinking is, how is it that drinking a cup of tea, we can stop the war? Being a boss, I can stop the war. I didn't get a boss that would do this for me, but now that I'm a boss, I can do it. Maybe. What is the courage that it takes for somebody to break that infinite cycle of spell over spell over spell? So I wonder what it takes to be the one, just one. It only takes one, you see. You don't need a whole organization of 10 or 100,000 people doing it. It takes one breath, 1 minute of caring, of compassion, to stop that cycle of endless violence with ourselves and with others. So maybe typing a memo, we can stop the war. Thank you. I'd like to say a couple of poems that are related to this, and then end telling, first I'll tell you what you committed to do. Okay, now here's my favor. Listen to me. And listen well. There's another story of King Arthur. Actually, it's of Parsifal. Parsifal is one of the knights who was in the search for the Holy Grail. And he searched and searched and searched, and finally he got invited to the castle of Anafortas. Anafortas was a king of the castle of the Grail, and there was the Holy Grail. It's a sacred place, the Holy Grail. And he went to this castle. He didn't know, but he went to this castle, and he was having dinner there, and he saw Anafortas, the king, lying in a sort of in a stretcher, in incredible pain. And everybody was very happy that Parsifal was there, but they were very saddened by the pain that their king was in. And he saw some weird stuff going on, like people coming in with a spear that was bloody and screaming and running with the spear and then leaving with the bloody spear, or putting the spear in Anafortas' wound. I mean, really weird stuff. But you know, he was a guest. He wanted to be polite. So, I mean, he just sat there and ate his meal, and the next day he left. And when he left, he found a fairy, a woman that he had known before, but she was also a fairy. And the woman was overjoyed, saying, "Oh, Parsifal, you went to the castle, you met Anafortas, you have released all of us from the spell. So good that you asked the question." And Parsifal said, "Uh-oh, what question?" And she says, "You didn't ask the question?" I said, "No, I didn't ask the question." "Oh, damn you." And she damned him, and he had to wander for 5 years all over the world in total damnation, because he didn't ask the question that would release Anafortas from his pain and allow him to be in charge of the Holy Grail. After a lot of trouble, he came back and he was able to ask the question. The question that he had forgotten to ask, or he never found the courage to break his politeness and ask, was, "What ails you? What is your pain?" If he had only asked Anafortas what was his pain, he would have released everybody from the spell. But he didn't, because he was being polite. So the favor that I will ask from you is to look for someone around you that is in pain. It doesn't have to be deadly pain. It doesn't have to be life or death. Just any small little pain. It can be a small frustration. But just to look for someone that you think is in pain, but you would be too polite to ask. And then say, you know, I made a commitment, I made a deal with someone that said I had to ask a question. And I'd like to ask you a question. What ails you? Because by asking the question, who knows? Now, you might help someone. So that's my That's my payment. That's the deal that I want to extract from you. And if you agree with my answer, then go ahead and do it. If you don't agree with my answer, you can go ahead and do it anyways. To finish, I'd like to tell you about the poem of Rilke that has been resonating in my mind through the 3 days of the conference, and then finish with 2 quatrains from Rumi. Rilke has this wonderful poem about who we are and who we not are, or who we are not. He says, I am not this steeply sloping hour in which you see me hurrying. I am not this steeply sloping hour. I am not the one you see hurrying. I am a tree. Much stands behind me. I am a tree, and much stands behind me. You can't know me if you think I am only this steeply sloping hour in which I'm rushing, hurrying. I am a tree. I'm standing like a tree. And I have a history, I have a background, I have a life. You want to know me? You have to know what stands behind me. I am only one of my many mouths. This mouth is only one of my many. And at that, the one who will be still the soonest. I am not this steeply sloping hour in which you see me hurrying. I am a tree. I am a tree, and much stands behind me. My mouth, it's only one. And at that, the one who will be still the soonest. I am the rest between 2 notes. This is who I am. I am silence. I am emptiness. I am space. I am the rest between 2 notes, who are always somehow in discord. There's tension. This is a space of tension between 2 notes that are somehow always in discord. And why? Because death's note wants to climb over. Life is always in a tension because death's note wants to rise up, to climb over. And in this tension, we live a space. But in the dark interval, reconciled, they stay there. These 2 notes, they stay there trembling. And the song goes on. And the song and our life goes on. Beautiful. I am the rest between 2 notes that are somehow always in discord, because death's note wants to climb over. But in the dark interval, reconciled, they stay there, trembling. And the song goes on. Beautiful. So this is who I am and who I'm not, who you are and who you are not. And this is Rumi writing about our talk today. It says, anywhere you find a lullaby, leave. Leave. If you find a lullaby, leave. Why? Because safety is the final danger. Space is the final frontier, and safety is the final danger. You're trapped. If you're safe, you're trapped. I was once like you, enlightened and rational. I was once like you, enlightened and rational. I too scoffed at lovers. Now I'm drunk, crazed, thin with misery. Now I'm drunk. I scoffed at lovers, and now I'm drunk. I'm crazed with misery. No one is safe. No one. You are not safe. Watch out. You may fall in love. In the driest, whitest stretch of pain's infinite desert, I lost my sanity. In the desert of pain, I lost my sanity. And then I found this rose. Thank you very much.